Are you ready to be great? Stop letting self-doubt, insecurity, and fear prevent you from building your business. This morning, wake up to success. Here's John Preston.
Good morning. Thanks for joining me here this morning on Wake Up to Success. Got a question for you this morning. Do you sometimes feel like you've got a battle going on inside your head between good versus evil, or maybe it's productive versus not productive, or maybe it's happiness versus sadness, or maybe it's excitement versus dread? If you have that battling going on inside of you, then you need to know you're not alone. We all have that. We all battle those forces inside our head constantly. It's one of the things that makes it very challenging when we are starting our own business, or when we're growing our business, or when we're selling, because there are so many forces out there that seem to take the side of the negative, that seem to take the side of the evil or the bad. And it's just a fight that if we're not careful, we will often lose. So today I want to talk about how to know what's going on with that fight and how to overcome it. And to do so, I want to share an old Native American parable with you. I think it's Native American. I've done some research. I've heard it from a lot of different sources, and it seems to come from there. And it's the story of a grandfather who's sharing some of his struggles with his child. And he's talking about how inside his mind are these two wolves that are just constantly battling. One of the wolves represents everything that's bad, laziness, evil in the world, depression, sadness, all of these negative emotions that we fight all of the time. And the other wolf represents the positive things: joy, happiness, energy, productivity, all of these things that we want in our lives. And we all have this constant battle going on inside of our own heads. And the grandfather looks at the grandchild and says, "Now, do you know which one's going to win?" And the grandchild has no idea. And the grandfather says, "It's the one we feed." And that is so powerful. What we feed grows in all aspects of life. And the same thing applies here. If we feed that evil wolf with negativity, with doubt, with fear, it grows. If we feed the positive wolf with happiness, joy, hard work, it grows. So how do we do that? How do we focus on just feeding the good wolf so that it can win the battle and take us to where we want to be? Well, there's a little trick that I tell most of my folks that is very powerful. You need to start thinking about what you're thinking about. Every time we have an experience of any kind, I don't care if a guy cuts you off in traffic, you get a prank phone call, whatever it is, every experience we have in life, we have a choice. We can either view that negatively or view it positively. Now, the sad part is it's human nature to choose the negative. It's human nature to automatically focus on the bad in any situation. And so that's a battle we have to fight. And you only fight it by thinking about what you're thinking about. When you feel those negative feelings start to arise, and that self-doubt arising, or that anger, or that hatred, when you feel those things start to rise, if you're thinking about what you're thinking about, you recognize that moment. And you realize that you're making a conscious decision to be angry. You're making a conscious decision to be mad. You're making a conscious decision to hate. You're making a conscious decision to fear. And because it's a conscious decision, you can choose the alternative. The guy cuts you off in traffic and takes off. Your first reaction is to get upset and angry and maybe flip him off or curse in his direction. But why? Why? What does that accomplish? Does it make him feel worse? Does it make you feel better? Or is it just because in that instant, your nature, your human nature, wants to perceive it as negative? When in fact, most of the time, somebody cuts you off in traffic, at most, it might cost you a few seconds in getting to where you were wanting to be. Not enough to dwell on. And when you start to think about what you're thinking about, you realize, I didn't need to get angry about that. It didn't cause that big of a problem. And what you will find is when you start doing that with every situation, you're feeding that good wolf. You're feeding that wolf that represents those skills and that energy that will lead to your happiness and your success. But when you get angry and you curse that guy and you flip him off or whatever you do, guess what? You're feeding the bad wolf. And that bad wolf will consume you and you'll never get the things you want in life. And it's a conscious decision. Think, for example, one of the situations that a lot of folks were running into nowadays is they'll schedule an appointment with a possible client and the client won't show up. Now, at first glance, in first reaction, it's to get very angry. What are they doing? What were they thinking? Oh, they've done. And we just jump to all of these conclusions. But if you take a moment to think about what you're thinking about and realize that there's probably a good explanation for why they're not there. It may be as simple as they forgot. We all forget things because we're busy. And there's so many more sensible reasons for them not showing up for that appointment than to just assume they're out to screw you. But we automatically jump to the negative conclusion. And so if you start thinking about what you're thinking about, you will realize how often you start down very negative paths when there's really no need to whatsoever. So instead of doing that, recognize the other alternative that, suddenly your appointment didn't show. You've got a free hour that you can hit the phones and line up some more appointments. Or you've got a free hour that you can get caught up on that task that you were looking forward to getting done. Or, you've got a free hour to go kick back at the park and meditate. Whatever it is, recognize the good in a situation. And you will find that feeds your energy level. It feeds your productivity. Because if that good wolf wins, you're going to achieve the success that you've longed for and that you've worked for and that you've wanted.